really can't complain because I got this bike for free for doing a video for them. It's a Blix bike. Been using it to get around my property, especially since I really want to bring tools with me places, and going back and forth is annoying. So I got this cart on the back, which is great. I got a chainsaw, little loppers in here, gloves, other supplies. But man, it's been having this problem with the throttle. It's an electric bike.
Just standing in the field talking about this
I
bike.
have to like stop
No
it
one
and
is gonna
restart it.
watch
I think
this,
it's,
man. It's
I think
pathetic.
it's the connection actually.
Just stop
I
this.
go through and try to fix it.
Oh, hey, how's it going? Welcome back. Thanks for coming. It's the Hotline Show. It's the 34th one. Today is October 27th, 2024. How was your week? It's peak fall. It's actually end of peak. We're downhill now. It's all downhill from here. Crazy thing about where I live specifically, and perhaps the entire Northeast, it's been so sunny and so nice. And I think for a lot of people, they really like this weather. I mean, and by most standards, it is nice. Like, it's warm. You can be outside, short sleeve. To me, it's kind of that weather where you're simultaneously hot and cold and you don't know what to wear. You're wearing a sweatshirt, you sweat, take that off, you're freezing. But because of its sunniness and its brightness, I really haven't been able to make much work for myself. So I've just been waiting it out, doing other projects. I did have two pretty big shoots over the last week and did this one. It was like a campaign for a pretty big brand. And it's one of those things, man. And I swear photography is hard work. We sort of touched on it last week, but man, the job where, I'm up and down, crouching, I'm always like, you're always moving. I don't know if there's a way to do a shoot, like a normal big shoot with lots of big shot list where you just keep a camera on a tripod and then you don't ever move. It's kind of not how I do it. I'm always like bobbing and weaving and up and down on my knees, laying down on my back sometimes. It's like the very next day, just sort of like walking around like that Tesla robot. You know what I mean, right? It's how I've been walking. What else is going on? I was going to talk about sports, but I think we'll wait till next week. If you don't know, this is the Hotline Show. You call the number. It's in the description below. Leave a message. It can be about anything. Mostly we talk about photography, but sometimes it's other stuff, and that's okay. Let me know what you're thinking. If you haven't called before and it's your first time, I will send you something in the mail. Maybe a postcard, maybe a book, maybe a little print. I don't know. Probably just a postcard, but could be something bigger. Once again, no Peter from Germany. Maybe he moved on. Maybe he found another channel. I think that happens, right? You find someone, you're into it, you're a fan, and then you move on, and that's fine. I've done it countless times throughout my life. There's people who I stopped following. I used to follow. I stopped following them. As far as I'm concerned, they don't even exist anymore. So we're going to take 4 calls today. I'm going to try to go through it fast. Nothing fancy is going to happen. We're just going to go for it. First call from Brian. Let's go.
Hey Noah, it's Brian in Minneapolis, calling with a comment question on something you said last week in the Hotline Show. Basically, you say sometimes you're driving by and you'll see a tableau and you'll think you could make a Gregory Crutzen photograph, but you don't because you don't want to do that and it's not, not your style or whatever. But in that moment, you see the art, you see the concept. And I'm just wondering if that applies to other mediums and not just, art. I know everyone has ideas for TV shows, movies, and blah, blah, blah. But what made me really think about it is like a really recent purchase of the land and how you thought the surveyor marking the boundaries was its own type of sculpture. And sometimes when I see your photographs on your land, I would think like, is he documenting land art here? Is a photograph just a documentation of the land art? And now with this new land, maybe the sculpture park is expanding and maybe really you're building something, much bigger here. Maybe looking too much into it, but just curious your thoughts on that, if there's anything, evolving in terms of your approach that way.
Brian, Great to hear from you again. Thanks for calling. Yeah, land art, land. Absolutely, 100%. I think, photography is great. It's obviously my medium. Uh, but I think, like all really good photographers, you need to find something else. Because, at a certain point, I mean, I know people get into it and they're passionate about it their whole lives. But, I mean, especially in this day and age, maybe there's something more, something bigger, something more monumental. And I love land art. In fact, Andy Goldsworthy is one of my favorite artists. Um, have a number of his books. I just love the sort of conceptual land projects he does. And I've obviously thought about that with this new land that I have, as well as the things that I photograph on the land that I've had, and how I can do things and alter the landscape in a very specific way. I don't know if I'm saying anything just yet, but it's in my mind and I'm working on it. And I'm definitely, right now, I'm in this like clearing sort of mode. Things are coming along. I actually got this notebook to do plans and write things down specifically for that, but now it's just become for everything. But anyway, yeah, I think we're going to get into it. In fact, I've been going around like taking down these eastern white pines, and I am going to talk more about it and definitely do a newsletter eventually about eastern white pines and why they're the worst tree. But there's interesting elements to them. It's complicated, but I've been going around and like delimbing small ones and then using or like just gathering the posts, the trunks, which I think I'm going to turn into some sort of fencing. This is a quick video of me just going through a couple.
We're gonna take care of this one. Even though it looks like a nice tree. Almost looks like you'd make it a Christmas tree. But that's not my holiday.
Now, this type of work, it's not totally art yet. Maybe me filming it makes it art. We'll see what happens. Just to go back to the larger point, I think a lot of people who do craft type jobs, the surveyor, guy who built my deck, guy who did my garden, like the construction of that, like a lot of these people are artists and they don't see themselves as that. A lot of craftspeople are just like they see beyond just the original design, but they would never be pretentious enough to call themselves an artist. I think calling yourself an artist has gotten itself a bad rap over the years, I guess. Most people just want to be called a creator now. I think that's more disgusting. I think that's a worse word. Creator. What are you, fucking God? I mean, just call yourself an artist. People have a problem. They're like, I would never be an artist, but I'm a creator. What? That's so fucking dumb. Did that answer the question, Brian? Thanks for calling. Anytime. I think we're going to be all right with the election. I know vibes have been fluctuating, but I just like cannot believe that it's close. I mean, that's my own bias, but what the fuck? Next caller.
Hey, Noah, this is Scott from Wisconsin, and I have another question for you. I'm curious what the adjustment was like for you when you moved from the city to the more rural location you're in now. We live in a city of about 12 or 13,000 on the shores of Lake Michigan, and even though our house is essentially in a suburban type setting, I can walk a lot of places, which I really appreciate. Sometimes we think about buying land out in the country, similar to you, but I'm not sure I want to have to get in a car to go everywhere. How was that adjustment for you? I appreciate the insight. Thanks, Noah.
Scott from Wisconsin. Thank you so much for calling again. Yeah, city to rural, that transition. Not that hard for me. This obviously just depends on what kind of person you are. And I totally get people who love cities, prefer public transportation, want to walk, want to be close to things. I certainly did it for many years in New York City, but it never really felt like me. I just I'm just so much more comfortable in a car, just more of an isolated type person. And as a result, like this is the kind of lifestyle I prefer, and I just love driving. I mean, it can get exhausting, and I've been driving so much lately. I just like kind of don't want to drive anymore. I think some of my back problem is coming from driving so much, but I just love a car as like my locker. Especially, I used to love going to LA because I'd rent a car and then all my shit would be in the car and I could just drive to different places and have my camera, have all my shit with me at all times. In the city, you're just lugging around all sorts of shit. To me, that was annoying. Think if my job didn't require gear and all the stuff that comes with it, I'd be more into cities and walkable cities, things like that. But yeah, I mean, if you don't like to drive or you want to be close to stuff, I mean, it sounds like you're in a great spot. I would recommend buying land, especially in Wisconsin now. I think, like, I mean, maybe we're a little older, won't make all that much difference, but 50 to 100 years from now, these northern areas are going to be where it's at. Winters will be much shorter, and we have water, and the southern states will be uninhabitable. So in a way, it's a good investment, maybe to pass down in the family. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like you live in a great place. I don't know. You probably shouldn't move, but definitely buy land. I think buying a land and property, houses, it's the best investment. People, it's weird shit on the internet now. People saying you shouldn't, like they're not that good of investments or whatever. Here's the thing. I could see buying a house in some suburb somewhere and it being not a good investment because it's just like a shitty generic house. But if you're someone who can make projects out of other things, I think this speaks to Brian's question in some sense. Like everything I do here is a project, it's an art project. So I'm just like trying to make it better, little by little, tinker, tinker. And I think, not only am I investing my time and money into it, but it's for a bigger thing over time that will, I think, pays off in the end. So that's certainly nothing I could have ever had in the city and never would have been able to afford anything there. So, everyone's life is different, their priorities are different, but I know Brian, first caller, loves to walk. He hates cars. He's like radicalized against cars, and I understand that. Personally, I like cars. When I was a kid, I had like a Lamborghini on my wall. Like I thought cars were cool. I don't really think cars are that cool now. I think they're interesting and I like them for their utility. But, I didn't have shoes on my wall. Walking sneakers. Thanks, Scott. Call back anytime. Next caller.
Hi, Noah. This is Jacob from America. I've been enjoying your hotline, and I had a question for you. So you shoot photos. They're very high res. Sometimes you print them out and put them in a gallery or maybe sell them. But I was wondering about online, and when you put photos online, do you feel like a lot is being lost? Is there a way to put them online where they're not losing all that rich detail that we get to see when the photos are on our own computers? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, it's like a art museum or a gallery on your computer when you take the photos off your camera, and then by the time they're online, they're a lot smaller. Are there any photographers that you're consuming their work remotely in a level of detail that's similar to what they're getting in their own darkroom or lab? Anyway, I wonder about these things, so I'm curious what you have to say, because it kind of seems like you're in your own world where you're not like sharing a ton of photos with other photographers. Do they even exist in your reality? I don't know. But if you ask me, the photos themselves are really cool. Nice to look at big. And especially yours, Noah. You take such nice photos. Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate that. Thanks for calling. So, are we losing stuff when we're putting stuff online, the detail and all that. It's kind of complicated. I mean, or it's not that complicated. I don't know. It's both. It's simple and complicated. I actually think there's a lot more detail that we're seeing when we're looking at photos on a screen. There's a lot, it's hard to transfer that to paper. So these two mediums, they're almost entirely different things. I mean, and that's why there is just a form of art called digital art. It like exists just on screens and online. Photography exists in that middle realm, right? It's part digital art now, and it's part physical art. It just depends on how you practice it and what you want to do with it. I think there is nothing better than like a beautifully printed photograph up on a wall. Like if I don't know if a lot of people have experienced this, but there's been a few times in my life where I've gone to a museum or show and I've seen a print and I'm like, oh man, that is so fucking good. Like it's amazing. And I do think photography, it's one of my top 5 forms of art. So, you know, when it's done right, it is just so fucking good. Obviously, it can be done horribly. And there's shitty prints. And, you know, oftentimes it's hard. It depends. Some of my photos don't print well. They look amazing on a screen. But then when I print them, they're just like, they don't work. It's just like hard. They're just different. In some ways, it's almost better if you never show those works online first, and then they see, you got to just see the print. The print is the only thing that exists. That's the real picture. Sometimes I say the best way to look at my work is standing next to me at my desk, because that screen is how I see it, and that's what I know looks good. People are looking at your work probably on a screen with that like night shade on, and it's like orange. So obviously a million ways people are going to look at your work wrong, and that's bad. But certain things like might just work better on the phone or the screen. Now, when it comes to like sharing other work with photographers, I'm friends with a few photographers, but it was always my thing. I guess I went to art school and was around artists early on, and I don't really like them. Just artists in general, I think they kind of creep me out. Like, and I just don't like to be around people who do the thing that I do. I'm interested in everything but what I do. So I'd rather spend my time with people who do things that are different than what I do. I don't think it's really a competitive thing, because especially now I'm sort of over that kind of shit, like the jealousy of like other photographers and things like that. But I just like don't think photographers are interesting people. And I'm not talking about the people who might be listening to this who are casual and just love enjoying taking pictures. I think that's nice and sweet. I think real photographers, like high-end art and commercial photographers, are just shitty people. And I am that. I know. There's always exceptions, of course. I'm sure. Not you, but you know. So yeah, I don't like get together with other photographers and show work. I do have friends who I share work with who are sort of industry related or into it. So that does help. I mean, we should always share work. And in fact, maybe it would be healthier for me to do that, but I just don't. I mean, it's probably just like long held feelings that I've had from just being really deeply disappointed and disturbed by people who I really admired and meeting them in person and just being totally let down. So that's just my experience in the world and why I avoid it. I know it can be different for other people, and if it is, good. But if it isn't, you're not alone. Thank you, Jacob. I appreciate that. Call back anytime. Send me your address. I'll send you something in the mail. Last call.
Hey, Noah. This is Jay from Maryland again. Hope your back's doing okay. My question, actually I have 2 of them. What are some of your favorite movies and actors? And if you want to go into, whether you use Netflix, stuff like that. And also, I wanted to ask about your dad, if you ever plan on having him back, because I really enjoyed his meditation episode. Thanks a lot. Talk to you later.
Jay from Maryland, thanks for calling back. Fun questions. Yeah, my dad, he'd love to come back. We'll get him back. He'll come again. And we'll do another video for sure. I know he really wants to. He really enjoyed it, but it just hasn't happened yet. I think him and I might get a trailer for the new property, and he might like spend some time there. So I've been looking into trailers. Have you ever looked? We all think of like a trailer, like trailer park kind of shit. How they're so ugly, and they are. But we went to a dealership, and we went inside some, and we're like, holy shit, these kind of rule. They're so fucking ugly outside, but they're kind of sick on the inside. So we'll see. We're in the market. We're not going to do anything this winter, but might have a trailer soon, and then I'll become a trailer influencer. I'll talk about what it's like to have a trailer for guests. Regarding favorite movies and actors, well, I used to love, like coming up, like I think the golden age for movies was the late 90s, early 2000s. It's funny, it traces exactly along the rise of peak film, beginning of digital. It's like right there, that was the peak. So movies just looked so good back then before they went to digital, and then there's like this glut of shit for like another like 8 to 10 years, and then now movies all just look good. Everything looks the same now. It kind of sucks. But back then I used to love Paul Thomas Anderson. He's was my favorite director, but just his first 3 films, Hard 8, also known as Sydney, Boogie Nights, and Magnolia. I used to watch those all the time. And I love Julianne Moore because of that. Philip Seymour Hoffman. Oh man. Tom Cruise, even in Magnolia, I think one of the best performances ever. Because of that, I just like him in everything. It's just, I know it's Tom Cruise, but it's just awesome. I like Nick Cage in Leaving Las Vegas. Holy shit. I don't think it holds up that good, but I remember that just being so fucking good at the time. Who else? Groundhog Day is one of my favorite movies. I worked in a video store when I was in high school, American Video in Huntington, New York. And every time I worked there, I played Groundhog Day. Only like 2 or 3 people ever mentioned that. They'd come in enough and notice that I was watching Groundhog Day every time I worked. But I love that movie, and I'll still watch it. Inglourious Bastards, one of my favorite movies. It's one of those movies that you can just turn on anywhere and just start watching it. Same with Shawshank Redemption. Easily one of the best movies ever made. So that's that. Thank you, Jay from Maryland. Thanks for calling again. I appreciate it. That's the show. That's the Hotline show. Thank you, everyone. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Do the stuff, like, subscribe. Call that number. You get something in the mail. Go out there, knock on some doors, do some phone banking. We'll make it. It's gonna be okay, maybe. I don't know. I think so. You don't know. We'll know better next week. Next Sunday, I'll let you know what the vibes are feeling like. Right now, we're in a shaky spot, but it might be okay. This should be a fucking blowout. It's crazy. I don't get it. It's hell. We live in hell. See you next time.